Hey Paulo, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Glad to hear, glad to hear. Where are you writing us from, or writing me from? Yes, us as in the rest of the people on the stream and myself. Sounds like a Brazilian last name, so. Holland, huh? Nice. Wow. Yeah, would not have guessed that. Are you related to Brazilians? I have a lot of. I grew up in Argentina, so I have a lot of friends. I wouldn't say a lot, but I know a few people named Paulo, and then Da Graça, if that's how you pronounce it. It sounded very, very Brazilian. And the only reason I asked is because I grew up in Argentina, so. It's kind of funny. Every time I try to guess where one of the viewers is from, I get it completely wrong. So maybe I should stop at some point. Let's see. Portugal. So yeah, that probably would have been a better guess after hearing that you're from Holland, given the proximity to Portugal. Hey Paul, long time no see, man. Where you been all this time? So just to give some of you who may have not seen my little setup before, the plan for today just takes a bit of a long time compiling all the software that's needed to get this little camera, which is essentially a Microsoft Kinect. So two cameras side by side, one that gives you just color image information and the other one gives you depth information. So I think in a few minutes I should be able to get it running with a Raspberry Pi and start having more fun with it. For the past 2 days I've been stuck in just trying to get it working. Yeah, it takes a long time, and I rather chat with some of the people watching than just focus on the work. So sorry if it's getting repetitive for some of you, but it's still fun for me. But today, yeah, we should be doing a little bit more fun stuff. Is anybody working on any interesting projects today? I'd be happy to hear about it. Alrighty, so this is good. Been also trying to document the process, so when I need to do it again, I know exactly all the steps that are needed. Because I'm following like 3 guides at a time, so that's why you see me switch between tabs and copy paste commands from here and there. Hey NT, how you doing? It's like I can read you well. Hey Reactor, thanks for popping in, man. 12 a.m. midnight in South Africa, nice. Oh yeah, definitely go to bed. Make sure you get at least 7 and something hours, so that you're rested for your lecture. But thanks for stopping by to say hi. And yeah, for all of you, you've seen me try to choose different times during the day to do the streams, so that way people from different parts in the world, as I found out that there's a lot of viewers from, I don't know about a lot of viewers, but the viewers that I do get are from all over the place. So trying to, right now it's 3 p.m. here in the west coast of the United States, 3:18 to be exact. And I'll do streams at 3 a.m. So, in 12 hours, sometimes at midnight here. So, hopefully one of those works for your local time. So, but yeah, have a good night for people in South Africa. Yeah, long time no see. What have you been up to? Yeah, it's kind of funny. The live streams have given me a chance to just chat with people who I know from the comments, and from people who, it's been a while since I've read a comment from them, just, for whatever reason. But it's a great opportunity to reconnect with some of the people we've interacted in a asynchronous manner, right? With a, comment, and then a couple of days later I'll comment, and yeah. So cheers, Reactor. So make meetings, nah, and not only because of the current situation with the lockdown, but just I changed a little bit of my business model. I used to have an office and do these meetups for people in Pasadena and Los Angeles, here local people who wanted to just talk about making and ask questions in person. A little bit of like a makerspace, but it was my office. And yeah, I kind of switched that up because it was taking a little bit too much of my time, and I needed to focus on selling the electronics. And that was even before I started doing the whole YouTube thing, and now with the live streaming. So I've been just trying to be a little bit more careful with my time, and I think I could start it out back again right now, just because instead of doing the live streaming, I can do just the live version of this. But YouTube gives me an opportunity to reach so many more people, so that's why it's still I would call it a bit in the back burner for doing in-person type meetups. But hey Omega Killer, how you doing? But here on the hopefully final steps to trying to get a new toy working, which is this little guy right here. And I just have it connected to, for those of you who haven't seen it before, it looks a bit of like a crazy contraption, but that's just from an old project. And all I'm doing with this is using the Raspberry Pi that's in it. So there's a Raspberry Pi 4 in there. I'll show a little bit of an expanded view. So I'm just using the Raspberry Pi and this guy. It's underneath this blue board, which is just a motor driver, a hat that's sitting on top of the Pi. and I just have the camera connected over USB to the Pi, and that's what I'm using that for. And yeah, I have it on my to-do list. I need to get rid of all the stuff that it's on the display from my overhead camera that on the tiny screen you can see behind me on the screen at the bottom left. So it's a work in progress. I thank you all for the patience while I get a little bit more proficient on doing the live streaming. So nice. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, it's been fun hearing that people actually find the content useful. I do it because I find it fun to work on projects, and I enjoyed using the ESP32. I try to keep the projects very, very basic so that people can actually use the code. I hate finding repositories of projects that are awesome, but they're so complex that if I need to just use a little piece of that project, it's always a nightmare to try to get it to compile or use for my own purposes. So I have a bit of a different approach. All my examples are very basic, almost like the examples that you find built into something like the Arduino IDE, but they're not there, right? Like sometimes they'll be there, like if I'm showing how to get started with a sensor like the SHT, something like this, the DHT22. I'll probably use the built-in example, but there are people who tell me, yeah, if you can show me how to do the wiring and stuff like that. So it's always great to hear that they're actually useful. So thank you for letting me know. And yeah, right now I'm working with a Raspberry Pi, as you saw. So that's also another fun toy to get into. It's a little bit pricier, right, than the ESP32, but being able to run a full operating system and connect things like the camera I'm playing around with, it's a lot of fun. So something to consider. What were you making, Omega Killer, with your ESP32? Well, so this is the second time I'm going through this process. I didn't get this far last time, and I ran out of memory on my SD card on the Raspberry Pi. So now I'm taking the opportunity to document every step really well, because the first time was like, oh, I need this dependency, I need this something else. And as I was doing it a second time, I could remember some of the things, but some of them I started to forget. So I'm being very fastidious now, or anal, about documenting the process. Oh man, nice. Okay, talk about an interesting project. Well, I'm glad not only were you able to find the content useful, but to pursue doing things like electronics, which are always fun, but you're actually taking it to the next level, and not only doing it at just as a hobby level or just for fun, but finding actual real world applications. So if my videos somehow, or my content, whatever, I wouldn't like inspired, it's a bit of too strong of a word, but if it just put a little bit of a grain of sand of contribution in that path for you, it makes me super happy. I see. So you're combining both a Raspberry Pi and a ESP32. Yeah, they complement each other quite nicely. On the Raspberry Pi, you can do things that you need an operating system for, right? Doing, for example, I'm going to use the camera that I have connected to do high-level computer vision stuff. And I know there are microcontrollers like the Opencv camera and a few others that can do relatively high-level algorithms, but nothing like using an operating system and Python for my purposes, right? Like I always say, every project needs a set of tools, and saying, oh, this tool is better versus the next is like, what you probably mean is that one tool is more appropriate for one project than the other. So I'm glad that you're combining the two. They're fun applications that you use both of them. So, awesome. And then, yeah, I try to keep repeating this. Want to hear from you, from all of you, the projects that you're working on, or if you run into questions. And I always read the comments, and I always reply to every single comment. I think all of you can attest to that. But you can also attest that sometimes it takes me a little bit longer than other times. So I started a Discord for the little community we have in the Acrobatic channel. So I'll paste the link on the chat, and you're welcome to join. And I have a few different categories or channels where I'll show it on screen so you know what I mean. You can ask questions or share ideas, show your projects off. So for example, there's this channel right here, Project Showcase, that I invite folks to share what they're working on. And I'm always curious, right? I don't want to be the only one showing my projects. I want to hear what all of you are working on. Might also give me ideas for my own videos. So yeah, it'd be fun. So the link I will paste right now in the chat, and I always not that I forget it, but I don't know how to actually get it from Discord. I need to look into that. But if I go to one of my GitHubs, I have it there. And obviously no pressure. It's just another resource for all of us to just stay in touch and, again, have the community share ideas and participate. Alright folks, we're getting closer. This is the second to last thing I need to install. After this, it's OpenGL. Hopefully we don't run into any trouble. Famous last words. But oh, Nicholas, I just saw your message. Yes, man, how you been? That's awesome. Oh, wow. Okay, where are you going to school? No, of course I remember, and every now and again I'll think about the kind folks we had. We had a little community. It wasn't massive, but we had a good community going on at the office. A lot of people in Pasadena enjoy the making. So, but you were one of the regulars. I can remember that. So I remember you were also one of the first few who showed up. And for those of you who don't know Nick, he showed up with a massive board with a bunch of relays for doing an illuminated path. I think it was in your stairs, was it? Or out in the, I don't know, a walkway outside, or I don't know if it was like the stairs or a walkway outside. So, but I remember you showing up with a wooden board with a bunch of relays on top, and started just grinding out the code for it. So yeah, that's awesome, man. USC, okay. Tip of the hat, that's awesome. So I imagine, are you 2 years in? If you have 2 years left? Or yeah, it was in the backyard. document this real quick. Yeah, no, I remember your health issues, so that's why I was, I didn't want to bring it up necessarily, leave it up to you, but that's why I was incredibly happy to, see you, because, we would chat after, people would leave the meetup, and I remember you telling me about your health issues, and I think, you were dealing with your foot at the time, so yeah, that's when you told me, "Oh, Nick." I was like, "Yep, I remember this person," and I'm very happy that not only are you around and relatively well, but you're back to school and again taking the knowledge that you seem to have been not necessarily starting, but just put into practical use at the time. You were taking that to the next level, so. Honestly, I'm not just saying this. My heart is full. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for some things, for others, not so much. But yeah, let's just say you, in a positive way, you also you left a mark. You left your mark in that meetup, at least as far as I'm concerned. So, and again, a positive mark. So it's easier to remember, right? If there is a significance to the event or the interactions in this case. Any other projects you've been working on recently, Nick? Oh wow, nice. That's that's awesome. I mean, it's an awesome area and a pretty a hot market right now with everything that different companies are doing. Obviously, I think led, in my opinion, by SpaceX. A lot of it's bringing a lot of attention to the field, and which is great. At least from a slightly selfish perspective. My wife works in that space as well, so in the space of space. So yeah, and it's obviously with budgets and things like that, because she works, yeah, exactly, Mars, the very next frontier, hopefully. uh it happens in our lifetime, we'll see. But yeah, my from a personal perspective, my wife works for the government in the sort of market space of space, so it's always good to be in a field that it's not going downhill and dying. So yeah. So, let's see. I think this is going well. All right, a couple more steps and we should be home free. So OpenGL comes next. Make sure we have this guy in the path. That's awesome to hear, Omega Killer. Yeah, I don't want to take full credit for that. If you put in the work and the motivation and you did the searches, and I was just lucky enough, the lucky recipient of your click for whichever video that got you that start. So it does require a little bit of effort. I'm happy that at least you found the content somewhat useful, and you didn't go like, what the heck is this guy even doing on YouTube? So I'm happy. So yeah, I mean, the ESP32, it's a great board. Like I said, there's always a particular tool for a particular project. You will never hear me say, oh, this is better, this is worse. One good thing about the ESP32 is just its cost, right? The documentation, say for some of the Arduino boards, the original Arduino boards, is probably better. You can rely on the company for the documentation, whereas with the ESP32 you have to rely on the community. So again, different tools, different experiences. But yeah, no, the ESP32s are great. So great board to work with. Nice. So you're making commercial products, so you took it a little bit, like I was saying before with Nick, you took it to the next level. That's awesome, because as you've seen, the projects I work with are very basic. For in the big scheme of things, right? It's not something that people can just immediately take and try to make a commercial product out of them. But I hope to give people a good start, a good basis, and they can use the entire piece. They don't have to, take a chunk out and use it for their own project. So I try to always keep it's intentional to keep the projects at a basic level, so people can take it to whatever they want, right? If they have a specific applications. And I do get requests and I read them all for, hey, can you make this? Can you make that? And if it's general, I will put it on the list very high up. If it's something that is very, very specific, like I want to have 3 different sensors connected to blah, blah, but they have to be like this particular sensor, I'll probably take a little longer, or just don't do it, just in the interest of serving the or making content that's useful for the most amount of people. Exactly, yeah, they can take it, Omega Killer, as you're saying, to whatever they want. I'm glad to hear, Nick. And yeah, I think it also requires for people to have an open mind to begin with, and just that curiosity to get started. So yeah, I like to think that I'm showing the possibilities, right? Like exposing you, all of you, or some of you, to the possibilities, right? And I can see how that's also a mind-opening experience, but I want to give, at least I know you personally, but I want to give people credit that you come with that curiosity, and that implies an inherent open-mindedness. So yeah, but glad to hear again that people are finding that stuff useful. And I was working with Nick on a sort of person-to-person basis, where that interaction is one thing, and it's one that before this whole YouTube, Twitch, live streaming stuff was, very, very common as it is today. People were just used to that person-to-person interaction. So it's an interesting change of pace for me to do the content digitally and release videos, and now with the live streaming, which is for me the next step. It's a pretty interesting experience, and I thank you, at least the people I'm chatting with right now, Mega Killer and Nick, for being part of that experience and making my life easy. And yeah, you never know what to expect with online communities, and I'm very happy that my experience is super positive. So, and again, that's thanks to you guys. So, yeah. All right. So, go back to the bash, RC file, add this little guy, and source it. Oh, but no. Shoot. I am root. I need to be the user. Let's see. Try to find it first. So on the Raspberry Pi 3, that is weird that it's been slow. Do you know where the slowness happens? Is it on the reading of the data, or is it on the actually send it up, or is it on the using matplotlib, which is actually pretty heavy, or is it on the sending it up to take Kinter? I haven't used that service, so I haven't used like Tinker Canvas or well whatever that is, but I imagine it's in the plotting. Usually, my experience, that's the part that is super slow. If you just do a print of the serial data, do you notice any slowness? I would figure, or I would imagine that that's immediate. That's not where the slowdown happens. Yeah, Matplotlib is usually the culprit. It is a pretty heavy library. So for doing real-time visualizations or near real-time, right? If you're having that serial stream, that's rough. Usually the way I would do that, honestly, is running a local web server, like using a module like Flask, which allows me to run a Python server, and that way I can capture the data, the serial data, run the web server, but the server only needs to be run once, right? That's where the slowdown happens, and then serve a page that's connected to the incoming stream of data. And on that web page, you use something like a WebSocket so that it's immediate. Once the data is in and it gets communicated to the web server, then the client can access it almost immediately. And then you need to tinker with JavaScript to do the plotting, and for, I don't know if that's your case, but for people dealing with electronics, that's where they get a little bit stuck dealing with JavaScript and stuff, like web stuff. Luckily, the reason I use it is I did a little bit of web development back in college for earning extra money. So yeah, but it's no different than once you get the handle on the language. Is not necessarily too different than Python. It's also an interpreted language, and you just bring in a library. You can have it locally, or you can just read it from a URL, a CDN, and then just do the plotting on the browsers. So use the browser as your canvas, so to speak. I see. And that's fast enough if you use a custom Kinter canvas. Take Kinter, I guess. Let's see. I haven't used it, so I'm gonna look it up out of curiosity. So. And then if you do follow for whatever reason or are curious about doing it in JavaScript, D3.js, it's a great library for doing things like plotting and a bunch of things that you can do on graphs and such that you can do with Matplotlib, but now you're integrating two different languages. Sometimes I would prefer to stay within a single language and not having to add additional stuff like a web server just to visualize data. But sometimes I've done it this way just for practical reasons. Kinter. On Raspberry Pi. I see. So yeah, for building GUIs and such, awesome. Nice. So, and then have you gotten started with, tinkering and building a prototype for the ventilator system, the breathing system? That's a serious project, and I applaud you for the effort. So yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I see. So I mean that was my assumption that the graphical user interface, the plotting, and all that was related to that project, but I didn't want to assume. So that's awesome. All right, but no, because let's see, you okay? So you receive the data on the Raspberry Pi from the ESP32, and then you plot it now with your custom canvas and. Pressure, flow rate, and oxygen. And then what kind of sensors are you using for that? Is it something at the hobby grade level for your prototype, or are you already using, I don't know, a little bit fancier instrument, or not instrument, sensors is what I mean? Yeah, because for oxygen that gets tricky in the sense that there are $5 sensors. I was looking to see if I had one on my bench. I do not, but yeah, you have one of those MQ whatever, all the way up to thousands of US dollars for very precise calibrated type instruments. Yeah, I imagine that eventually you would have to get up to medical grade, and that's awesome that they're already included in the prototype. But for another approach would have been to just build a prototype using cheapy old sensors, and which I've seen. Right, it's not your case, but I've seen people not in this application but doing medical related instruments, and they'll start with something that is a hobby grade, and I always have to remember to give the disclaimer about calibration and all that, right? And those sensors, particularly for oxygen or any type of gas, they get pretty up there, because doing even a cheap one, still a hobby grade one with decent calibration, it's over $100, which is expensive in the context of makers and hobbyists, but definitely cheap, as you can probably confirm, for medical grade equipment. So that's awesome that they're the actual instruments are already there. And then where, like, for what, like, in what country or city or however general geolocation is this project taking place? I've been curious if it's a US based effort or Europe or somewhere else. Hey Aloka, how you doing? Yeah, no, that's what I was explaining. I assume eventually you get to the point that it's being used in hospitals, but I didn't know what kind of prototyping approach you were taking. So glad to hear it's already pretty close to the instruments that you're gonna be using in the final version. So yeah, no, I know. I didn't grow up in the US, so my knowledge of geography, sorry, I don't mean to rip on the US education system, but I grew up in South America, and I've made a lot of friends from outside the US, and it seems that in our experience, you learn more about world geography outside of the US than in the US. So it's always a running gag. And again, I hope people take it as it was intended in a jokeful fashion, but in 2020, sometimes I find that you have to be extremely careful with, making sure people know you're not trying to offend them. So nice. All the way out in Sri Lanka. That's awesome. So maybe, if you catch me again on a different stream, I'm going to be asking you to see how that's going, because it seems an interesting project. Not only that, but one with real world implications. So that's awesome. Like, important implications, right? You can make stuff in the real world that is just like, but yeah, always stuff in the medical field. I have a lot of respect for, particularly if it comes from the DIY, evolving into a real world application in the medical field. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, Nick. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because at the high school level, I should clarify, it seems to be running behind. And again, we're generalizing, right? I'm sure there are high schools, middle schools that are just, in the top percent of quality of education in the world. But in general, at the high school level and below, seems to be lagging behind quite a few countries in this day and age. But when it comes to college, again, generalizing, everyone wants a piece of American education, right? And for a lot of people, it's a way of, getting a degree and as a path to working in the United States for a few years, myself included, right? I made the trek because, Argentina was one of the countries, a little bit like Cuba, that had almost zero illiteracy, if that's the correct word, rate. So pretty much everybody could read and write, which is not a given, particularly in other countries. So, and the index was higher than the US's. But, once you get out of high school, then, the college education, it's the kind of thing that used to be good, but never at the level of the United States, and it's become worse. So I have a bunch of friends that, wanted to come over and get an American education, and then met a bunch of foreigners, people from foreign countries out here in the US with similar mindsets. And I always try to keep an open mind and not necessarily, reaffirm my own biases and convictions. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, that dichotomy, right? Where part of the education system is not great, and another is superb. And a lot of, then you get into private schools, and, well, only for people who can actually afford it. Yeah. But it's interesting. But that's an interesting perspective to set up for, if it's set up for students to fail. I yeah, yeah, no, exactly. um and then what's ironic about it, and that's what I was saying, that the country as a whole seems to be lagging behind a few different others, and then they complain, hey, why is Google outsourcing this labor? Like, why are they giving out jobs to other people? And obviously there are two separate issues, right? The fact that the labor is cheaper from different countries, again, because some things work so well out here in the US, right, that you can get really good qualified labor for cheaper than hiring domestically. But not only is it cheaper, but it's significantly better. Like, I work in aerospace for a couple of years, just in one of these aerospace companies, and yeah, man, like, say, work with a bunch of people coming from IIT, the India's Institute of Technology, and for software, right? And they would, run circles with the same level of preparation, same amount of preparation in terms of years, for some of the people coming out of, this was in Orange County out here in the US, and people coming out of UCI. We had a lot of recent grads from the University of California in a city called Irvine, which is not necessarily at a top level, but it's a good school. And yeah, the preparation was just miles behind, even though, I claim that the US education system as a whole, it's top notch. That's kind of weird, right? But that boils down to what Nick is saying, of failing those students at the high school level, and then, or in grade school, right, teaching things a little bit, not the way perhaps other countries are doing it, and then that gets reflected later on. But yeah, people who do manage to go to schools where they're not using boxes and sticks to learn math out here, and that's far too few, right? That's why those jobs are being outsourced, because the actual qualified labor that's available domestically is not nearly enough. So yeah, and then they not only sports, Nick, but to go to a good college, they have to focus on, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, I don't think so. Just college has gotten so ridiculously competitive as well, and they have to spend a bunch of time volunteering. I used to, for folks in LA, like yourself, Nick, I used to volunteer at San Marino High School, which is a really good public high school, but it's a wealthy city, so they offer really high quality education. And man, I used to volunteer for a girls who code organization there. One of the students started a club for under the Girls Who Code organization, and she was doing an internship at my company back in the day. So she asked me, can you be a tutor? I can't find anyone. So anyway, I went and volunteered as a tutor, and try to recruit a few other people, so they also get it's a Girls Who Code organization, so I have a few women friends to also volunteer. Anyway, these kids were so incredibly busy with volunteering and just doing things just to check on a box, so that when they would apply to college, they wouldn't be dismissed, because it's gotten, like, the good colleges have gotten really competitive. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, fun times, Nick. But yeah, sports are entertainment, right? there is a lot of focus on that, and that's what sells. People are going crazy right now with the lockdown, and you know, yes, it's huge money making industry. So yeah, not to say that the tech side is not a big money making business, but it seems that it requires less infrastructure to get athletes than to, get good scientists, mathematicians, engineers. So yeah. And yeah, sorry to to ramble on, but it's a very interesting topic of conversation. So yeah. Yay, I think we're finally done. Alright, so apparently this has been updated since they wrote that guide. Alright, fake cameras, indeed. Alright, rebooting. Yes, we're done. Let's see if we can get some images with this darn camera. Hey Ali, how you doing? So in the case of using the depth camera, do I want to do some object detection? All right. So I've been keeping it on the down low. What the application is going to be, as it's gonna be, for a new video. But I don't mind sharing if somebody asks me. But I was intentionally mysterious as to the application. But I can say that I want to do object detection and yeah, something like gesture detection. So just I can reveal more as the live streams go on. But I so I'm gonna be in front of the camera. I want to be able to recognize, me as an object, and I'm gonna try to, because it's a fancy camera, and try to do sort of fit a skeleton to the body, to the object, which is in case my body, fit a skeleton to it and do a little bit of motion tracking. So gestures in the sense of tracking the motion of that skeleton and see if I can do something with that. So that'll be, it might be just super general. This is how you do it. This is how you do motion tracking for a human body. But I have hopefully a very specific application that I want to try to show you all on the next video. So fingers crossed. Oh, nice. Yeah. And honestly, if I didn't have access to, again, this is going to be for a, it'll be 2 videos, one going out to Element 14 and one going out on our community, on our channel. So the one for Element 14, since I'm making with the same hardware project for them, then they supply the parts, and that's how I was able to get a fancy Intel RealSense D435 instead of a very cheap Kinect on eBay used. So yeah, you could do it with a Kinect without a problem. And I think the software that I'm going to use runs better with a Kinect. As I was reading, it's this one that I'm showing on screen, a NuiTrack. People do use it with a D435, and we'll see how far I get. But yeah, no, great question. Yeah, no, that's the hope. I don't know if it's just there's only so much time, and unfortunately I have to keep my projects short, and not necessarily an unfortunate thing, right? But let's say if I won the lottery and I could do whatever I wanted, maybe from time to time I would spend a month in doing a project. But as I need to run parts of this as a business and make sure I can pay my bills, I need to be more efficient with my time. So in that sense, I gotta keep the projects relatively narrow in terms of their scope. So yeah, but as I grow more efficient and grow more accustomed to making videos, then I can pursue more projects, more challenging projects. And at least one of the next ones I want to do, this is the one you might be referring to, is doing a little bit of AI, but all the AI is handled by these pre-made libraries, right? I'm not spending time and running my own machine learning algorithms, just tweaking some hyper parameters here and there. And the 2 projects I'm doing is this one using this teachable machine by Google Labs, where you can use the webcam on your computer and do object recognition, and you train, you already have the machine learning algorithms made for you, and then you just train it. So that's one project using teachable machines, and yeah, all of you can check it out, the different examples they have. And the other is using this guy, and I showed it before. This is just one of those kits with a Raspberry Pi and a camera. Nothing fancy about that. But I've adapted the Donkey Car code to run on there, and it's a similar project where the AI is done for you, and AI in the sense machine learning in the sense of artificial intelligence, and then you run that software, you train it, right? You drive the little car by hand, and you collect a bunch of data. So images and steering angles of the car, you collect a bunch of them, and then you run TensorFlow on it that is already developed. So it's almost like black box. You put your images and your steering data, you get out a model, and then you put your model back in the car and you let it run. You click a button that's made for you and it runs autonomously. But even that, like if I can show people how to do that, then that's awesome. And it gives me an excuse to play with a little bit of AI as well, even though I'm not doing the hard work. But I'm gonna get started that way and then take it to the next level as I get a little more time. So I'm happy to for whatever it's worth. So is there any video or books for Linux? Yeah, it depends. So we all learn differently, and I learned Linux by just messing around with it and just forcing me to do everything as you see on screen, on the command line. Like no GUIs, I'm not gonna connect it to a monitor. When I learned before Raspberry Pi, but if I was learning today, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get on a terminal and force myself, learn how to use an editor. For some things you do have to, like if you can actually display web pages in the terminal, but that's painful. So I would use a web browser, and in that sense I would use a GUI or use a separate computer. But all of the tasks like editing, I would use a text editor built into a command line. I think the biggest pain that I've seen people have to overcome is not being able to point and click and use GUI stuff. But it sounds like in your case, Omega Killer, if you're a programmer, that's not necessarily the holdup. But yeah, I would say just using it. I don't know any really good books off the top of my head. I bought like a couple of books way back in the day, particularly for doing things like shell scripting. They were really specific books, but like as a manual overall, I do not know any. I'm sorry. And again, just a general use book, it'd be hard to find a good one, right? Like if you want to do specific tasks, like how do I build applications within Linux, or how to do a shell scripting, how do I do automation. And I think, yeah, it's getting pretty warm out here in LA, so I'm gonna have to switch cameras to my webcam. I was using a GoPro. Let me put something up there at least while I switch to my main camera, because it got overheated my little GoPro that I use as a webcam. Let's see. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. It's getting pretty warm here in LA, and it's the middle of the afternoon, so yeah, GoPro is not happy. And let me read you Ali. So if I take a look at the Snowboy kit, oh, okay. Let me look at it. I have no idea what the Snowboy kit is. Oh, nice. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, because yeah, very new to the intersection of AI and sort of tinkering. I did a little bit of AI for when I was in college, and we use that term a little loosely, so I did just machine learning back in for during my grad school days. But let me try to get the webcam going, and yeah, add a source. This is what I'm doing. So at least you can see what I'm up to. I'll do video capture of device. And then, this is a guy, the GoPro is the one that went dark. And my GH5 is the overhead camera that you're seeing on the bottom left. So then this will be my face. I think this is the name of the camera, FaceTime HD. And alrighty, kind of works. So a little bit worse resolution, but what you gonna do? It's a less flattering angle. Now have to edit it a little bit to crop it. I see. So for the Snowboy, oh, Omega Killer, yeah, man. Go, please go to sleep. It's 6 a.m. Thanks for stopping by. And yeah, no, for sharing. And please, if you see me on the next live stream, let me know. Keep me updated how the project is going. I'm curious to know. Good luck with that, and thank you for thinking of your peers for and pursuing projects like that. Have a good morning, I guess. And then for the Snowboy, you're telling me, Ali, that it will detect the Raspberry Pi. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That was the description I read on Google before I clicked it, that it was made for Raspberry Pi. And yeah, I'm curious to use it, so don't be surprised. I'll give credit. Like if I use people's ideas, right? You'll see your comment or a reference to the person who suggested it. So I'll usually take a screenshot so I can show it during the video that I make. And it works offline, nice. Transform. All right, Nick. Bon appetit, man, and thank you for stopping by. And it was awesome to catch up with you. So yeah, you take care as well. Then, guys, some of you might be curious what the heck I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. I don't mind showing the behind the scenes work. So, gotta try to. Bye bye, Nick. Trying to crop this guy. Take a bunch of pixels on the left. I should probably. Left is a nicer side to look at. So I'll do 25 in here. I like 250. 350. Something like that. 400. Alright. And then bottom is fine. I need to crop probably like. Alright, I'm gonna take this up here to my other monitor just so I can have it a little bit, display a little bigger. And I need this guy. And getting there. Still gonna edit it a little bit. improvement, still working on it. And all right, by all means, send it. I'm always curious to see what people are working on. And I keep saying I should have started the live streaming so much sooner. It's been a lot of fun, but it's also a big investment of time to set everything up and get used to the software and having everything running. And as you all can see, I'm still adding new things. It's been fun. I wish I would have started it a little bit earlier, but it is what it is. Come on. All right. I think we're back in business. Now, all right. The only annoying thing is that to read your messages, I can look up here. I can look up here, but I should be looking down here, right? And that's the screen I'm capturing, unfortunately. So there's no. I would have to do a lot more work, but it'll be like this for now. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's some. I'll try to find out, Ali, if there is something on my end for allowing some messages on chat. Just the chat comes with the default permissions, which I'm sure are set up to protect things like sharing bad links and such. But if I tinker with them, it'll be more permissive. So yeah, go ahead and for now send it on the Discord. I appreciate it.
Nice. Yeah, no, it seems like a fun project, and one that I saw one example that it's sorting the cereal, and I wanna it's done with an Arduino, so just A, to bring it to the attention of people who haven't heard about it, and B, to do something different, not just the same things that I find. I wanna use a Raspberry Pi instead. Same project, but just use a Raspberry Pi. At the end of the day, it's just controlling the servo, because the AI side of things is done on somewhere on the Google Cloud, I suspect. So you don't need to install anything locally, I think. I'll know more when I actually look into it, but it's on one of the top 3 projects that I want to do, so it'll be one of the 3 next videos. Alrighty. I think the only thing I didn't do is install Opencv, so I'll still keep this open. I wonder, I don't think this can be run just like that, but sure. Yeah, no, the silence is just me trying to focus because everything is installed. I'm missing the binary in the path, so I'm just figuring out which step I missed. Just because I can see the tool here, I'll go ahead and execute it manually. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out because everything is installed. I finally rebooted, but now I'm trying to figure out what am I missing to actually run the damn thing. And I think the viewer, it's a GUI, it's a graphical user interface. I don't think it's gonna work with my current SSH session, but at least I want to know that I'm able to run it before either doing VNC or doing X forwarding over SSH. So that's where I'm at. And the silence is from concentration. And part concentration, part frustration, but it's always part of the fun. Just there are like 3 different guides that I need to follow, so luckily now I'm able to compile the code without a problem, everything, and install everything. So I got that down. I've never gotten to the spot where I'm actually trying to run it, so I'm missing one more thing, but I'll add it to my own documentation, and next time around it'll be more straightforward. Let me see if I can just run it manually. I see, so for some reason this wasn't installed. Come on. Maybe because... yeah, that's weird. I know when I compiled this, I set one of the options to false because I don't have it connected to a monitor. But maybe if I instead set it to true, that's how I get the RealSense Viewer. Yeah. Yeah, I guess had another problem where I wonder if I just installed it for the root user. Nope. All right. Change ownership. Try to make this again. Yeah, no, that's what I did, and actually somebody had instructions even on the few modifications to get all the way on a few modifications for the Raspberry Pi, the different versions for some of the dependencies, and everything worked. I literally just finished the entire guide. I'll show it on screen real quick because there's one for Raspbian that I follow, but it's for a Raspberry Pi 3 and it's in their repository, right? So if I go to RealSense, just to show you again, I'm doing a sanity check, Ali. And then if I go to their documentation subdirectory, I can look for, there's one that was for Raspbian. Yeah, or Raspberry Pi 3. So let me see. Yeah, I guess there's one for Raspbian from 12 months ago and one for the Raspberry Pi 3 from 2 years ago. So I'm using the one for Raspbian. And yeah, everything went well. And I got a few errors at the beginning with some of the dependencies, but then I found an issue on that repository that told what little modifications. So everything worked at the very last step of that guide. And I know I went through the process of installing the SDK, but I did it late last night, so maybe I did something silly. But yeah, I think I followed that exact same procedure. But say one of the tools is this RealSense Viewer that I just want to try running. It's not going to run under my current SSH session, but I want to make sure it's in the path. And trying to debug that at the moment. But thanks for the suggestions. So could not find Vulkan. Yeah, so if I try to build the examples, which I'm assuming that's what builds the viewer, the error I get is it's not finding X11. I might need to run this over VNC. I'm gonna need VNC anyway. So do I want to do that? Sure. All right. No reason to be stubborn. And nowadays, I think you can do VNC through here, which is awesome. I guess the default is no password. So now can I do this? And anybody, maybe you, Ali, do you know the VNC port off the top of your head? Because obviously, or does it? Yeah, I need to specify it. $5,900. No. What the heck? It is the correct IP address. Yep. I see. Yes. 5900, yeah. Thank you. But that wasn't it, so I wonder. Want to make sure this one is not like a proprietary protocol for Macs. That's a built-in screen sharing program for Mac. But yeah, it is just a standard Vnc Viewer. So why can I not see my Pi? I've always installed Vinegar by hand, so this is the first time I'm trying the one that's available through the Raspberry config menu. So I want to see how it works. Yeah, no, this is what I tried. This screen sharing here, it's a built-in Vnc Viewer. Say if I go to one of my other computers on the network, it works, right? This is just my computer upstairs where I do the video editing. So it is a Vnc Viewer, but you know, I double check that this is the correct IP on my local network, and it is port 5900 that I don't think you need to specify, but I'm doing, and nope, denied. All right, so this is probably old, or enabling Vnc servers. No, I haven't reboot. Just usually if you do things through the Raspberry config, it'll ask you if it needs to be rebooted. And I'll try rebooting in a second just because, yeah, that's the way things work. But some of the tasks that do require rebooting, when you exit the Raspberry config menu, it tells you that you need to reboot, like expanding the file system or enabling some of the interfaces. You do need that reboot for it to take place, but for the VNC server, it didn't ask me. But I'll try rebooting. I just wanted to read the documentation real quick. So, but yeah, it doesn't seem to require a reboot. It just jumps from how to set up the server to establishing a connection. So, but you and I both know, Ali, that it's probably due to a lack of reboot, because that would be my guess as well. Come on. Maybe I'm going crazy and didn't actually enable it. Yeah. And I guess I can do, what's the name of the service? I can do sudo system control status VNC server x11. It's loaded, it's active and running. So is this the request from this guy? Man, so many interfaces. Yeah, so it does see the incoming connections, but it rejects them. Why? Probably a Mac thing instead of a reboot, so I don't think I need to reboot. It does see the connections, but Oh, it's, yeah. I guess I'm not running an a desktop environment on the Raspberry Pi, which is weird because I didn't. I mean, I installed the full version. All right, reboot it is. Maybe it crashed the desktop at some point. So. Yeah, should be running. All right, so now I don't see the error that it couldn't find or no, I did. Here it is. All right, well, give one more try. So it's a stupid Mac thing. The software on the remote computer appears to be incompatible. I should read the error messages every now and again. So it's just silly Mac being silly. So, big surprise. Chicken of the VNC, which I know works. Yeah, very, very much so. Very awkward. And of course, since I'm running the latest version of Mac OS, it's not able. This is probably a 32-bit application, so it's not able to run it. The joys. So I was praising Mac how easy it is for doing things like office stuff back when I work in an office, and programming stuff for the tinkering. Back then I tinkered on the weekends. Look at me eating my own words, making my life hard for doing something as simple as VNCing to a computer that's not a Mac. So, let's see. Now I need to teach myself what's a good VNC client for Mac Catalina. So it needs to be a 64-bit, I guess, yeah. Real VNC. And then yeah, I'm pretty sure it will work. And then probably one run Open it. That's surprising. Nope. Wonder if it's password protected to begin with. I'm gonna try it without it. I don't think it's... Alright. So apparently it is password protected by this default. Alright. So I'm connected but cannot show the desktop. Why not? I need to reconnect. Oh man, this is turning out to be quite the task. I mean, is it because, I don't know, I think the desktop is configured by default. I'm just gonna plug into a monitor, swallow my pride. Yeah, no, the Raspberry config, it's probably the culprit, but just want to see that it's nothing super obscure, like I'm running this light version of Raspbian and it didn't come with a desktop, so which could have happened. And I think, yeah, I have no option but to disassemble. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure I could disable that prompt by hand, but at this point, as I mentioned, I'm gonna swallow my pride and just connect it to a monitor. It's day 3. Yeah. Can I? Yeah, I think should be able to get it off here without having to turn it off. I wouldn't be surprised if I turned it off accidentally, but hey, it serves me right for being super lazy. Bye bye, little robot. Actually, yeah, I think I'm screwed, and this is why. Let me bring up the... I think I'm screwed because the port that is open on the back of my monitor both of them. It's a DVI port. They're old monitors, so it's not HDMI. The only cable I have for the Raspberry Pi 4, it's a mini HDMI to HDMI. So yeah, I can't think of a good way of having the Pi display to a monitor. So I'll probably try to see what's going on manually, but I want to try to take a little break. But everything is installed. I think I just need to. It didn't install things that require X11, the windowing system, the desktop environment to be running. So I need to install that to get their default viewer, and I need access to a desktop environment anyway to run the viewer to show, just the raw data from the camera, which I want to do. So I'm gonna take a little break and then come back and hopefully finish this off and figure out, probably offline, connected to a monitor, make sure I enable the desktop environment and I have the Windows X11 windowing system running. And when I do that and compile whatever I need to compile and make sure that that works, then go back and figure out the way of doing it over just the command line. I guess that was the whole goal, right? And I'll make a video on how to get the Intel RealSense working with a Raspberry Pi 4 that has all the freaking steps, and you can SSH and you can do it headlessly without a monitor. So that's my goal, and I'm using this live streams to share a little bit of that cumbersome experience with all of you, so that hopefully, when the video comes out, people can realize that there was a little bit of work involved. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna sign off now, and I'll be back a little later. So for you, Ali, it's always fun chatting. Thank you for sending me that info on the Discord, and for obviously other people watching this either now live or a little later, then thank you for stopping by the channel. Remember, I'll be doing this live streams more frequently now that I'm finally used to it. So feel free to stop by, say hello, leave a comment, or leave questions. So thank you all for watching.